Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sneha, and I'm currently interning with the Climate Change Program at CEE. On behalf of the team of Center for Environment and Education, I welcome you all to the national webinar on Outlook on Climate Governance and Water Policy with a focus on participatory approaches. This virtual program is being organized by Center for Environment and Education in partnership with Hanns-Seidel Foundation. Hanns-Seidel Foundation works with partner organizations to support India's federal democratic structures on various topics through dialogue, workshops, international exchange, and national conferences. This is mainly to promote the humane living conditions and to contribute to India's sustainable development. Both these organizations have been jointly working in Gujarat for the past 3 years to improve community water management practices. Furthering this partnership, the current study was conducted to understand the policy dynamics and inclusive approaches to achieve water security. Before we start with the sessions, I would request everyone to keep their mics on mute when they are not speaking. And having said that, I would also request to our speakers to keep their video on while they are presenting. In case of a question, you can kindly post them in the chat box or use the raise your hand feature. We will be addressing them during the open discussion session. I request Ms. Shri Singh, Coordinator for Climate Change Program at CEE, and Ms. Riksha, Program Coordinator Climate Change Program, to put a light on the conclusions from the study on climate governance and water policy with a focus on participatory approaches.
Thank you, Sneha. I'm sorry about the technical glitch. Center for Environment Education recently conducted a qualitative study on climate governance and water policy formulation with a focus on participatory approaches. And the study was supported by the Hanns-Seidel Foundation. The main idea behind the study was to strengthen the coherence between the existing policies and potential actions, and with an idea to promote stakeholder engagement. The study mainly draws opinions from secondary literature and in-depth policy analysis. And we have also been able to put in some of our experiences over the years. To provide a little background on the study, as we all know that the increasing water stress situations and the growing water demand across the growing water demand has forced us to take many tough decisions. And with the consequences of climate change, it has become really harsh to tackle the development challenges our country is particularly facing. And if we look at the interconnectedness between water and climate change, and we see the different frameworks which were introduced internationally in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the Sendai Framework, water could be seen as a very vital connector between all these three, and would be helpful in achieving our climate change commitments which we have promised, in order to reduce the risks. Ending poverty, as well as also ensuring that there is social inclusion. So with that background in mind, we had designed this study, and the objectives were mainly to reflect upon the water policy formulation processes within the climate change governance framework in India, and also analyzing the policy efforts and the institutional mechanisms which have been developed to reduce the water related vulnerabilities. And also, sort of, as I already mentioned, that illustrating the existing level of stakeholder management, or also what could be the possible pathways through which we could strengthen participation within these policy dialogues. So these were the core objectives of the study. In India, where we are already facing a lot of severe impacts, especially in the agricultural sector, which is highly exposed to climate change risks, and India is already the fifth most affected country when it comes to the global climate risk index. There have been many policies which are designed keeping in mind the climate change variability and water. When we talk about the national development contributions, there are a lot of adaptation strategies which have been designed for water. And the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which came in 2008, also has two missions which are focusing on water and sustainable agriculture. So we have some linkages there. However, water policy, as we all know, is already at the forefront of these measures. So the national water policy, which came in 2012, also focuses on incentivizing the water storage capacity at the state level, and also reviving the traditional water harvesting structures. They have also focused on the increased water use efficiency, infrastructural planning, and not to forget stakeholder participation. There is a special mention in this policy about good governance and transparency, which can ensure equity, social justice, and sustainability. And so looking at those interlinkages, where there were a little small gaps also which need to be filled, and that were identified as part of the study. Mainly the institutional arrangements have been vital for water use, both at the demand side and the supply side. Also, specific approaches need to be designed to influence the behavior, especially when it comes to conflicts in the urban and rural settings. A lot of coordination level issues, for instance, among the different level of governments and also across different sectors and geographies. That coordination has also been a gap in these policies. Addressing all these, some effective governance structures and robust strategies are required, especially when it comes to climate change coping mechanisms. And talking about climate change in particular, when there needs to be also some capacity building at the community level, so that technological options, climate resilient technological options could be adopted. So the main idea is to have a coherent policy on water and climate, could have co-benefits across various sectors, and this could be complemented by different, say, mapping of water resources and what could be the possible effects of climate change with some financial structures as well. So now coming to the participatory approaches. Participatory approaches form the core of good governance, and they have the ability to ensure coherence when it comes to cross-sectoral decision making and implementation, and which could lead to sustainable solutions. So it has been identified across in various literature. And when we talk about the water policy in particular, irrigation and drinking water supply were the two major sectors where participation has been emphasized. And community participation mostly has been focused on in the water projects and services like mapping of resources and some water conservation efforts at the local level. Engagement of but engaging the non-government actors right in the process of policy formulation is an emerging need, so that the ownership of these plans, projects, or policies lies in all those actors. Also, involvement of people at the local level forms an important component when it comes to water management. So the sustainable policy development mainly calls upon participatory approaches for designing, developing, and implementing the coherent policies, especially when we talk about the four fundamental dimensions of water governance, so that equitable, efficient, and sufficient water is available to everyone. And also, when we talk about the political dimensions, the equal rights and opportunities are provided to the stakeholders. When we were reading and when we were conducting this study, we also came across the various stories of participation, especially across three different policy areas. I will be discussing all these three. In terms of water demand management, where decentralized supply forms a key element, the government of Gujarat has introduced Pani Samiti, which is a drinking water supply scheme, where they form local water committees to bring together the community, NGO, and international organization. And the technical assistance is provided by the Water and Sanitation Management Organization of the Government of Gujarat. This program was mainly designed to promote the Gram Panchayat and the Pani Samiti to take lead in in planning, managing, implementing, and operating different supply schemes in villages. And this has been a very successful decentralized model of service delivery, and it has provided about 18,000 households with water supply in the rural areas. So that was one of the stories which we got. And again, talking about the urban rural conflicts, the urban and rural settings have different regulations, and water governance is often recognized as one of the key reasons and the potential pathway to resolve such conflicts. And one of the stories comes from Bangalore, where the urban Zilla Panchayat actually challenged the government when the new Karnataka Panchayat Raj Act enabled them to create a kitty of the cess which was collected, and it was only uniformly distributed between the taluka panchayat irrespective of their contribution to the kitty. So the urban Zilla Panchayat, which had a larger share of the cess, challenged this decision, and because it deprived the taluka panchayat of their rights and under that jurisdiction, and also because they had to share it with their rural counterparts. So we have to keep that in mind, that in development, while developing these schemes and programs, we need to think of these conflicts which may arise, and this could increase when the villages are going to be merged with towns. So this was one of the stories which we got. Again, the third dimension which we tried to explore was solar pumps. Since groundwater is one of the major sources of irrigation, technological innovations for protecting farmers and their livelihoods is very crucial. And somehow there needs to be an affordability and sustainable irrigation services which needs to be provided. And solar pumps were emerged as one of the alternatives to this conventional irrigation solutions. And this story from Anand Dhundi village in Anand came from where the government has provided some subsidy to the farmers that own pumps, so that they could give the electricity which has been generated also back to the grid, and which could increase farmers income. And this was also the scheme was also meant to reduce the overuse of the groundwater. So with these two things in mind, this subsidy was introduced. However, few of the farmers came in together to form a farmer-led cooperative, and they took this opportunity to capitalize it, and they sort of sold this water for irrigation as well as the excess electricity. They also used the excess electricity to give back to the grid. So they benefited themselves as well as other farmers, as the water available through this scheme was available at very low prices. So this was again one of the stories which we have highlighted as part of the study. Now, finally, talking about the various dimensions of the sustainable water security. So while managing this water, there are three main policy areas for water, including water availability, water consumption, and water procurement, uh, which have a lot of influencing factors at the backdrop, in like demand side management and institutional mechanisms. But these are well embedded within the sustainable development agenda, and they are very vital to very vital to create economical balance, and also ensure equity, as well as also keeping in mind the environmental sustainability. However, the climate change impacts have to be considered, and these are one of the emerging factors whenever we are developing a policy. They have to be considered, since they are emerging and we don't have uh, much data currently to support those studies and the mapping. So yes, so now I'll now want to invite my colleague Rixa to discuss the conclusions and recommendations from the study.
Thank you. There was a small technical issue. I was still on mute, but now I think you can hear me. So thank you, Shri, for the background and the summary of our study. Talking about the conclusions, I think there are several points actually that we found interesting, but we would like to share only a few with you. Of course, we have seen, and that was Shri's last point also, how water is one of the most climate sensitive sectors, especially in India, with high impacts of climate change already being real. And that also brings us to the point how central water is for lives and livelihoods for a lot of different stakeholders across private sector, civil society. And this connection between water and climate policy is therefore really, really important. We have also seen that within the sector of water and water management, there has been quite a narrow cooperation already, also across the different sectors in multi-sector consultations. And there can be a lot of learning from these experiences, but certainly we still need more of that. And Shri had highlighted 3 examples of the better cases where this was really successful and is still ongoing. We also see that distributed governance is really a key. So that means that for the different challenges and aspects of water management, we really need to see what level of governance is the best to address these challenges and set the policies accordingly. And of course, we want the benefits really to be felt for people and the environment, and set up the sectoral policies for water, climate change, and other sectors in order to shape really one sustainable development agenda. For that, the human rights-based approach is really important in governance, also because we are looking so much at the inclusion of people's interests. And we see that the good side of the water security issues that India is facing under climate change might open up a new window of opportunity for a new paradigm shift across the water management field. So the challenges also brings an opportunity for learning from the existing experiences and the good examples that we have seen. Next slide, please. So we have also drafted a couple of recommendations arising from our analysis, and we have clustered them in 4 packets. The first one that I would like to touch upon is to strengthen the decision making, and this is really like government's aspects. Of course, Shri already mentioned the importance of well-functioning institutions, but we also need to really make sure that within all the governance processes, there is enough space for stakeholders and for bottom-up processes and approaches really to be able to feature in the policy making. And of course, also the decentralized governance and management of the different services, which then leads to the second cluster, and that is probably the most important one for us in this study, the stakeholder engagement and public participation. Of course, this is our goal, but it also needs preconditions. So we need to be sure that people whom we want to participate are actually allowed from the structures, but also are well informed to actually make use of the spaces that are provided to them. We need the role clarity and a good setup for stakeholder participation and bringing together different people. And we also need to recognize the community-based interventions and treat them with the necessary respect in the policy making, because they are really feeding in the experiences that only can deliver the solid policies that are required. And of course, we need awareness generation and capacity building for these stakeholders to really allow them to understand these processes and bring in their expertise. Then we have the two other clusters. One talks about the improved integration of water and climate policy, and then there, of course, is the financial point. So on the coherence between water and climate policy, we suggest that this can be still improved, and also not only because, between the climate sector and the water sector, but this needs to be seen in a much broader sense, reaching out also to agriculture, development, biodiversity, energy, and many other disciplines in order to really tackle the whole breadth of sustainable water management, and also see the constitutional mechanisms and legislations, horizontal, vertical cooperation mechanisms that is really important there. We need to then see that this is also leading to coherent action on the ground, and that we find strategies for climate change across all this policy for planning and management of water resources. The financial points talk about, of course, the increase of investments that is needed in order to guarantee water supply and lead to sound water demand management. It also talks about the direct access of finance. And on another point, there is also the idea of introducing clear incentive structures for promoting the efficiency of water use. So the finance cluster is a little bit mixed. There are plenty of ideas what actually can be done for tapping different kind of financial resources. And with that, I would like to leave it and hand back over to Shri. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Shri Kartikeya Sarabhai, Director, Center for Environment and Education. Mr. Sarabhai serves as a governing council member for a number of leading educational institutions in the country. He is a recipient of many national and international awards and was awarded the Padma Shri for his contribution in the field of environmental education. He will be speaking to us about education as a tool for enabling participation in policy discourses. Sir, I request you to take on the platform.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief, but because I think most people understand how critical education is to getting participation, and why participation is so important in water policy. I want to give a few examples. We've worked across India with village panchayats, especially with women members of the panchayats, seeing how education increases their participation. We worked with youth. We worked through the NABARD Jal Jeevan here with several village things to prepare village water maps and water strategies, water security plans for villages. But we were also involved in policy making through public consultations in different areas of agriculture, coastal zone, green India, and everything. And there we found that when we start with giving an education program, usually it was in the form of exhibitions and other campaigns, the quality of participation improved greatly. People were able to participate with policymakers in terms of their contributions and what their concerns were. We also have, in a country as wide as India, several reasons why a policy, even at the state level, needs to be tweaked for a local application. And this, by definition, almost requires people's participation in it, and people need to be educated to be able to do that, to be able to see that the policy makes sense at that level. Understanding and education also greatly improves compliance. It improves the fact that so much of the water area is a combination of demand and supply, and individual and collective action along with government action. So it is not a sector which you can really deal with just by government or just by even the village panchayat, but does require people to really participate in it. And so we have really seen education as a very basic And this is what we want to stress. This study has shown us which areas. So I don't want to take much more time, but just to stress how education through various methods is critical to this. So I would like to Shri go on to Dr. Khosla and him chairing the panel. We look forward to that.
Yes, we will now be starting our panel discussion on enhancing stakeholder engagement. The session will be chaired by Shri Khosla, and he's the founder for Development Alternatives and a member of chairman of the governing council at CEE. He is also the director of Indian government's first environment office for UNEP, which was in Fortera. Sir, I request you to give the opening remarks for this session.
Thank you, Sneha, and thank you, Kartikeya. There isn't really very much to add to all the very insightful comments already made. Well, one can see three things in the current scenario that highlight the importance of the subject that we're talking about. One, of course, is the reaction of the farmers to making policies that haven't fully consulted all the constituencies who are going to be affected by that. And water is probably an even bigger issue than Mondays. So to some extent, this is a major problem that it's highly time for us to address. Water for drinking, water for agriculture, water for other uses is going to preoccupy the lives and the attention of everyone in our country in the coming years. It is the constraining resource. We have not managed it very well in our country, nor have many others, but we're talking about India here at the moment. In our way of dealing with water as a free resource, unlimited, infinite resource that can be maltreated in any way we want, we are now heading for very serious trouble. The drinking needs of our big population, the irrigation needs of our farmers, the commercial and manufacturing needs of our industrialists are all going to be jeopardized because of lack of water. I think in the Punjab, for example, where these farmers are now protesting from, we have a stark reminder of how maltreated water can lead to not just lower productivity, not just basic chemical and toxic poisons, but to health problems of a very severe kind, including cancer, including other things. So we have a lot of work to do. And over the last several years, the Hanns-Seidel-Stiftung has been sponsoring an amazing program in CEE, which I think is has been profoundly important. That is mobilizing local village panchayat leaders in becoming responsible in their local policies and local implementation of policies on water. And I think this has had a tremendous impact. And the culmination of that is into a project to look at how those local policies can be encouraged and facilitated from above. And so at the national and state and maybe district level, we need to have mechanisms that encourage local policy making. I don't want to take up time because I think we're running more or less on time, so it's not too bad. But we have some terrific speakers, and I'm going to invite them to talk. And then I hope that we will have a little time at the end for participants to ask questions and we have a conversation. The first speaker in the panel is Mr. Volker Plän, who is actually the resident representative of the Hanns-Seidel Foundation, and he has been terrifically supportive of this project. So I really want to welcome him warmly and thank you for all your support, because CE has been really very valuing your inputs, both intellectual as well as financial. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Shri Ashok Khosla-ji, for the very warm welcome. And of course, Hanns-Seidel Foundation also would like to welcome all participants and speakers here today. I think I should also keep myself brief, looking at the very renowned panelists that are still to come. And also considering that Riksa was kind enough to already give the most important parts of the study paper, which I believe speaks for itself. So I would like just to give a little um, 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 extra opinion on this. And this area of water governance, climate change, and federalism is targeting various focus areas of Hanns-Seidel Foundation, which is also why it makes it so important for us and also for me personally to be involved in this very important topic. And I think it's also a good time to have this conversation that we have today, um, since the COVID-19 pandemic has led us all to rethink our relationship with our environment, with nature, and the way we personally have been managing our natural resources. So while we were dealing with the pandemic, the management of water found a central place in our containment strategy. The provision of safe water, of sanitation and hygiene is what is needed to prevent the outbreak of such a pandemic and other infectious diseases. It's of course very difficult to predict how water challenges are going to look like in the future. All we know is that it's not going to get easier, neither for on the personal level nor on the political level. So what we do know is that water availability will be further reduced because of the adverse impacts of climate change. And this is, as Kartikeya had already pointed out, this is not new. We know about this. But what it means is that sustainable water management has emerged as absolute need of the hour, and that on all levels of government, I believe. So that water can be managed and governed effectively so as to cope with climate-induced challenges is extremely important. The governance approach towards water needs to holistically integrate climate concerns. Governance has to act where its impact lies, and in terms of water, that is the local level. So when we talk about strengthening governance, we talk also about strengthening decentralization. And if we talk about strong governance, I think we should keep in mind mostly effective, efficient, and accountable governance. One that where you can conceive ideas, create strategies, and implement them directly and quickly. And furthermore, also to have sustainable responsibility over it. So, for example, through institutions, which is also a part of the study. I think the Jal Shakti Ministry is a very good example, where the need of the hour was realized that water needed to be managed jointly and cannot be distributed over 8 different ministries. And this shows also that it's much easier, at least it is much easier for the government to implement strategies. Institutional change might still have to come, but this is a step that India took that I think will also be done in other countries in the world. In fact, it should have already been happening. But there are even some ministries, some countries in the world that do not even have environmental ministries. So, but when we talk about water governance specifically, water governance is not necessarily a part of government. So, Riksa has already pointed out the tragedy of the commons in the beginning. So water is a commons, a shared resource, and it needs to be managed and governed collectively so as to prevent the tragedy of the commons, which would then lead to overconsumption or, for example, overfishing of shared resources. And collective action based on the social capital and which is supported by the civil society, the community around managing this resource, should be prioritized and pursued to enhance the effectiveness and outcomes of water governance. If you look at what Elinor Ostroms gave as examples for good common resource management, we can see various examples in India, not only in rural levels of India, where local communities can be most efficient in governing their common or shared resources. And all that is required at this stage would be then a small degree of regulation, ideally, of course. So for this, local circumstances and local knowledge need to be taken into account, which is exactly what we have been doing together with CE in the past years. where we have found that the local governments, for example, the sarpanch, elected women representatives, especially the women representatives, were the ones that had already a very good overview and knowledge of water resources and their importance in the household, but also in the village structure. Taking this into account, you automatically reach high effectiveness of water governance when you include the local communities. When you look at traditional and provenly effective irrigation methods, agricultural methods, wastewater treatment methods. So we can take the step into the 21st century along with keeping in mind what has already worked in the past. It's just important that there are structures in place that ensure that this is also being observed on the higher levels. And higher levels, we have in India a large number of administrative layers, which would result often in very indirect governance of resources. And when we look at local resource governance, we don't have to look to just rural spaces in India. We have very good examples around the world where an open-minded local government can include opinions of industries, communities into creating a long-lasting and efficient management of resources. We have the example also not far from our head office in Munich, in Germany, at a lake where I don't know when it was, I think some 20, 25 years back, the tourism department, tourism associations and fisher associations, along with the respective municipalities, I think 3 of them, and local industries were all actively involved in a decision-making process for wastewater treatment at the common lake. And today it's seen, at least in the state, as a best example, which has also avoided conflicts for the future. And this is why I think governance should be more bottom-up approach with a lot of community participation and a multi-stakeholder partnership if you want to achieve water security. That also might mean to budget water and maybe also to price the available water to give justice to its enormous economic importance. So our goal as Hanns-Seidel Foundation is to increase efficiency of the SDGs and implementation of SDGs, for example, SDG 6, especially with regard to water, but also SDGs 13 and 17, which are about climate action and enhancing the partnership for sustainable development respectively. And it is part of India's bilateral cooperation agreement with Germany. And I think Shri Bharat will also know that the GIZ and KfW from Germany are directly involved in this bilateral water agreement. So we have governance structures that are also a little bit in the need of more of using the potential in horizontal cooperation. We have cooperative federalism both in Germany, in the European Union, as well as in India. And it seems normal, but this is something where in India, I would say there's quite an untapped potential. So now I'm going a bit above the local governance level because I can see a lot of potential to avoid conflicts. For example, in Germany, we have regular meetings of environment ministers from the state. On the European Union level, there are regular meetings, not regular meetings, but there are meetings and conferences of the environment ministers of the member countries on water issues. For example, in the heavy droughts that we had in 2018, 19, actually even 2020 in the European Union. And this has proven to be extremely effective and prevented a lot of conflicts. So if we create plans, for example, with standard operating procedures between states, conflicts can be avoided and policies can be implemented more efficiently. I think the current ongoing pandemic would provide a very good example how states should ideally work together. Of course, I think there's no federation in the world where such standard operating procedures exist, but this might be the best time to think of something like this. Our study shows where interlinking can be improved, and it shows where institutions can be improved. Especially with these multi-layered governance structures that we have here in India, I think, and with this point I would like to conclude, on the top, the focus on water governance has to be already on the ground. So with this I end here, and I thank you for your attention. And I'm looking forward to the other speakers and the discussion.
Thank you, Volker. That's terrific. And, you know, I think the insights you shared from both these studies as well as from the experiences in Germany and Europe are very powerful. You know, the whole idea of subsidiarity that the European Union has been proposing for the last two decades actually originated in the 18th century in India as a means of devolving powers to local people. Over the centuries, you know, we have our ups and downs and different systems of governance, but there seems to be logically no way to get the right answer unless local people actually are the ones that make the decisions. And I think you're absolutely right. This has got to be strengthened. Now, may I call on Sanskriti Menon from CEE to tell us a little bit more, amplify a little bit more on the participatory policy frameworks, which would help us get all levels and all domains of sustainability into the picture. Sanskriti.
Thank you. And yeah, much has already been said, actually, and it was really insightful to hear Volker and Dr. Khosla as well, and Kartikeya. I think what Volker mentioned of having an SOP on participation, and I note also Dr. Ishwar Kale's comment, which has come in the QA, that is there a framework? So it would be really good to articulate or elaborate on a framework for participation itself, and really understand how it would sit with the existing participation framework that we have, which is of the Gram Sabha, the Gram Panchayat, and the district rationale. Because that framework in the first place does, for all its difficulties, it does recognize that the need for participation in the sense of recognizing every individual as a citizen and providing for a forum for participation, which is the Gram Sabha. And so the reason why we need participation is to recognize that the people are citizens and they must have a say in what is happening. Quite apart from the instrumental value of saying that if people do participate, then we are more likely to be able to develop good ways forward. So I think the framework for participation that we would like is something that does recognize both this, the right that people should be able to participate in things that influence their lives, and then look at how the instrumentality of it, that how does it actually take place, that it becomes valuable, that the participation actually becomes valuable. And so, of course, you know, with water is the dimension of, are we looking at, say, watershed-based participation, and are we looking at aquifer-based participation? Because often groundwater becomes a bit overlooked in water management. And as it happens that a large dependence is on groundwater, and we don't yet perhaps have very good ways of even understanding groundwater, let alone then managing it in participatory ways. But if you were to bring in a rationale of aquifer-based and watershed-based management, how does that framework sit with the Gram Sabha, the Gram Panchayat, and the district levels of participation? And so, you know, the how and at the what scales of participation, I guess this would be an important element of the framework that we might actually evolve. And then when we say that, you know, so who's going to participate? Do we recognize that, you know, it's not only organized groups okay, so there's an industry association, or there's the farmers association, but is there a possibility that we keep it quite flat in some senses, that the most marginalized groups are also equally able to participate? And that the participatory forums don't actually get hijacked by certain interests alone, and that the participation actually happens in a way that the most marginalized voices actually are able to contribute to the discussion and benefit from the discussion. And here again, I think it's quite a challenge because water, as we noted, is really, it's multi-sectoral, and we are linking it to climate change. There is a complexity. So how in such a participatory forum, how does the experiential view and the expert view, the trends of use and what we see coming up in the future, how are these actually combined to form a whole that helps us actually negotiate the ways forward? I think there is a big challenge of negotiating the participation process itself, of understanding what is up for discussion, how the different knowledge contributions of the public themselves, who are experiencing different ways, different events which are happening, which are perhaps at variance with their traditional experience and traditional knowledge, because there is climate change impact. How do we bring that into the, along with the expert view, along with what is understood about climate change, and bring it together in its multifarious, so what does it mean for ICDS? What does it mean for public distribution systems? If we are saying that we will shift from cash crops to more nutritious crops, how is that decision actually being taken? With what expert input? So I think there is a big case for figuring out the facilitation that such participation processes will need, and in a way that this facilitation has to be ethical, so that participation doesn't get hijacked. And I think those are some core concerns that people have had in I think what we read also about, and the experiences, so to try and actually make this happen, so that it is well informed, it's equitable, and that we actually get good ways forward if actually the decisions that a participatory forum takes is actually implemented, that we actually have this embedded into local ways of doing things and at higher scales of doing things. So I think it is extremely timely that we have this discussion, but that we will need a lot of more discussion on how we construct participation, so that we are actually able to deliver also, so that I mean, and itself, the the mechanism of participation itself, I think, requires some discussion with the public. So I want to stop here and say that look forward to hearing others as well. Questions on the.
Thank you, Sanskriti. I am audible, am I? Thank you, Sanskriti. I would like now to invite Mr. Bharat, Mission Director of the National Jeevan Mission, to give us some encouragement in how to go forward. Mr. Bharat.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. And first and foremost, sir, I would like to thank Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai for extending this invitation to me. It's a privilege to be here and listening to all of you. I think it's a great to learn something. And I'm grateful to Professor Khosla that those words of wisdom. So I'm sure we are going to use it. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And speakers before me, Mr. Volker, Plän, and as well as Sanskriti, I think they have made out very, I mean, they brought out, salient points what we should be doing to ensuring, people's participation and how we should be following the participatory approach. So I'll try to, in 7-8 minutes, I'll try to give my perspective. And I hope it will be useful in some sense. As you know that, Mr. Volker had already mentioned that, Government of India has tries to bring water-related subject at one place. And yes, it is a work in motion, actually. I will not say it's a complete everywhere in the country, but I think first step has been taken, and I think a very effective step has been taken. And I think it is working, but yes, it takes own time. So that's happening. The second is that what I have seen, in fact, I joined back this sector after a gap of 10 years. I was doing some other job. So again, came back in water sector after 10 years. So I would like to make just 2-3 observations. A, in 2010, when I left this water sector, at that point of time, I saw that at top, at policy making level, I think there was a realization and there was a desire, genuine desire, that people should be involved in a big way. We should be investing on them, and fairly good amount of decision making should rest with them. But when you see the actual what is happening on the ground, I think situation varied from state to state to region, and I think it was left to, there was enough scope for individual officers to basically, act. So it became very, very, very individual centric. It varies from a state, but officers are there. They are working in that direction. So I think this participatory governance, I think, improved. But wherever they were not, on same page, I think, system went on. Now, in last, let me put this way, that in some way, people realize, and the success of Swachh Bharat mission, I think, made everybody realize that if we invest on people, forge partnership with civil society, start working with, at village level, at individual level, I think probably you can, what we call leapfrogging factor, you can get it, you can work with the speed and scale. So I think success of Swachh Bharat mission led to that under Ministry of Jal Shakti, different kind of program. Even you might have noticed in Namami Gange, there is a clear-cut shift. Instead of construction driven, STP driven, I think it has become much more people centric, program started in 2015, but you see last couple of years, this is very clear cut, Jal Jeevan mission has been launched. I think, I'll take later on few minutes to share few important points about this program. Take Atal Bhujal Yojana on groundwater management, water stressed districts areas. This is totally this project. This program is basically on people's participation, investing on, people. So if from here I just straight away come to Jal Jeevan mission, one thing you must have noticed that the program, the way it has been structured, is it next to impossible that without involving people, you can implement this program. And B, by somehow you are able to do that. It is next to impossible to operate, maintain, and manage it. Next to impossible. And I'll tell you how this policy making is basically being done. And see the way technology is being used. I think there is no alternative except to involve people, and basically you have to transfer power to people. So in Jal Jeevan mission context, let me what very simple way of looking at it. We have got let me come first to rural area, and maybe urban area will come later. We have got 190 million rural household. When program was launched last year, roughly 32 million household had tap water connection. So it means roughly 157 million household to be provided. Every year, 27 to 30 million new household you are adding. Okay. So it's not like that everywhere you are going to build new infrastructure. No, not possible. So what was done? First, you have to go back to the ground wherever, whatever infrastructure existing, this need to be revalidated and augmentation, retrofitting, what low-hanging fruit. That is the first thing. So every state has to do this exercise. Every district has to do this exercise, that wherever, whatever infrastructure is existing, kindly revisit, augment it, improve it, retrofit it. And secondarily, in that village, whosoever are left out, everybody has to be given connection, tap water connection. So all inclusive, no one is left out. Now, second approach is that wherever water is available, groundwater or surface water, local water based solution can be found out. Again, go for pipe water supply system. So this is the second thing. And third thing is that wherever is required, you can bulk transfer, regional water supply scheme, multi-village scheme, those things can be taken up. Or treatment plant, technology can be done. But what we did, we said, we all know that in this sector, the real problem is maintenance and management. So we, at higher level, we work with the Finance Commission and, for operation and maintenance, huge committed money, tied fund is given to Panchayati Raj institution. So like for this year alone, under Jal Jeevan mission, we have roughly total 30,000 crore rupees, but 30,375 crore exclusively is being given to Panchayat for operation, maintenance and managing this system, equal amount. Forget about 5%, 10%. Total 60,700 crore rupees are being given to Panchayats. Out of that, 50% is tied fund on water and sanitation services. So it means two options. If you want to have centralization, if a state government want to keep power, please spend your money. And if you want constitutionally mandated Gram Panchayat, if they have to, the government has given, Finance Commission has given this money to them. And under Jal Jeevan mission, what we did, we ensured that there is no money available for operation and maintenance to state government departments. If any village is operating, maintaining, managing, we will provide them 10% incentive grant for operation and maintenance. This is the first thing. Second, we understood, because as everybody knows here, when we were developing this program as well as operational guidelines, we took every stakeholder for 5 months. We did regional consultation, statewide consultation, and basically took their views. So this bottom-up approach was not on paper. What we are trying to do, that every village, and it has been done in Gujarat, Mr. Kartikeya, Sarabhai and others, they know it. Every village has to prepare its village action plan. And it will essentially have 4 components. A, local drinking water source strengthening. B, water supply infrastructure. C, grey water management reuse. And 4th, operation and maintenance. So every village has to, and the power has been given. If it's a homogeneous, well, do for whole Gram Panchayat. If it's not homogeneous, even every village want to do separately, please do it separately. Even every habitation wants to do it separately, please do it. So this decision has been left to people themselves, that please assemble more than 80% people present. Whatever they decide, we will go by it. So there could be 3 units, 3 layer of, at Gram Panchayat, holistic picture, 255,000 Gram Panchayat in the country, they can have, well, they will decide. Or 6 lakh plus villages, or 1.7 million, 17 lakh habitations. So this has been totally decentralized, and every habitation or every village or every Gram Panchayat, they decide what way they want. They prepare this village action plan. And our understanding is, I think we have to invest in empowering and educating community about various funds, various sources available for water management. So Village Action Plan A identifies what are the problems, what are the infrastructure facilities available, what ought to be done, and where are the money available. I mean, let's forget about Gujarat, except in southern Gujarat and other area, maybe Manrega fund is not used heavily in eastern and southern belt. But in many states, take Rajasthan, I mean, NREGA fund is used heavily. So I think NREGA fund can be dovetailed for local drinking water source strengthening or grey water. Same as Swachh Bharat Mission fund can be used. Jal Jeevan Mission can be used. District Mineral Development Fund can be used. CSR fund can be used. So second important thing has been done, that there will be village action plan. On the basis of village action plan, the work will be identified and money is being provided, that is being dovetailed, and that, in fact, very successfully what we did in Gujarat, we tried to do it nationally, that NGOs will be involved in a big way everywhere as implementation support agency under Jal Jeevan Mission. Everywhere they have to be involved. No, I mean, that is the way. Fourthly, we also ensured incentivization and that operation and maintenance has to be done by Gram Panchayat or Village Water Sanitation Committee, whatever name you give it. Money is being given to them. So today what we are doing, every year we have started functionality assessment. Whether this type connection which has been given, whether it's a functional or not. Functional means in terms of quantity, minimum 55 liter per person per day. Quality, it should conform to certain quality which is prescribed by BIS. And C, regularity means minimum daily service delivery. So what we did, functionality. Now imagine that state might claim that my coverage is this, my this thing, and we carry out this functionality and issue the report. So I think I will not say much, but name and shame. But wherever functionality is very high, we give incentive fund, and it is as good as their allocation. Like last year, I don't know if I have, no. We carried out functionality assessment and just released the report. So some state, you won't believe, one state functionality was hardly 30 or 40%. So I think that is forcing them. And secondarily, we have already starting, pilots are going on, that in every village sensor-based IoT device will be there, which will capture data on daily real-time basis about, let's say, an overhead tank. So water at outlet is going or not, in what quantity, quality, regularity. And we are also this, I mean, picture should be very clear, including grievance redressal, including, other. So those kind of intervention is taken. Like few days back, we have opened our whole laboratories in the country, Public Health Engineering Department laboratory, 2,300 laboratories we have opened to public to get their sample tested at nominal cost. In Delhi, if I want to get my blood tested, it will take half an hour. I can call from any lab, somebody will come and pick up my sample and get tested. But if you want to get my water sample tested, no, it's not possible. So what we are doing, we have opened up all laboratories and very minimal. pH, I mean, it just required one strip. 1 rupees, 2 rupees, that's it. TDS, I mean, all these are automated. So why to are having a very high cost? So we have done that. Thirdly, we are already working that develop smart. See, in every home now, glucometer is available. You can measure your glucose. Why not portable domestic water quality testing device? A small device is there. I pour my water, I get certain test done. What is the pH? What is the TDS? What is the, let's say, alkalinity? What is, those things can be done. And imagine today in Delhi, take Delhi or Ahmedabad for that matter, any place. In Delhi, Delhi Jal Board claims that they are giving me potable water. But they say when we supply, distribution system owned by them. I get water at my delivery point. Here, they don't guarantee that water is tested. What I do, I don't trust. I install my hard-earned money RO plant. Again, I am not getting my water tested, but I am using it. So if we empower people, empower community, empower village people, city people, everybody, that you can test your water, I think water governance will improve. That is our understanding, and that we are working, Lastly, before going, what we are trying to do, like in COVID-19, in fact, I was given this opportunity to get involved in COVID management and, this thing. Today, look at COVID, the whole database. You want to get tested yourself? You have certain symptoms or you have doubt? You want to get tested? There is an app. You can find out nearby labs. Give sample. Test done. Data is uploaded. Data goes to the person who has given sample. It goes to for remedial action to district authorities, government authorities. It goes to central database for analysis and study. Just imagine if we are able to do the same thing. If you open your app, from kit, you test the water, upload it there itself, and or you take to lab, it will be tested, lab uploads it, copy goes to public health engineering department. In serious cases, it goes to district health officer, it goes to central database, and you can monitor, you can take action. And if you are indifferent, please keep on sleeping. I have no issue. But the issue will come into public. So idea is that if we want to participate, we want to ensure participation, you want to ensure that people should be participating and taking decision. I think if people like bureaucrats like us, we feel that our responsibility is to create a situation where people are able to do it. They are empowered. Create a situation. There is no choice actually. And I will not take your much time. I think we are taking a number of steps, like we have reintroduced whatever you call it, KRC, Key Resource Center. We are going to set up certain center of excellence. We are already setting up in Kolkata, National Institute of Public Health Engineering to empower, to build, to reorient our public health engineer. Because see, as you all know, here, a civil engineer overnight joins government, overnight gets converted into public health engineer. Overnight. What training is given? I don't know what kind of training, but he's attached with some senior officer. He became excellent manager, quote unquote. What managing? Contract management, officers management, this management, that management, manager. But he never becomes a utility manager. End of the day, he's utility manager. He's running utility, but utility manager, no, he didn't become that, So idea is that this public health engineer, civil engineer to public health engineer to utility manager, we should try to convert him or her into true utility manager. And lastly, we are trying to work out that every village panchayat, our village, our habitation, we are working on it, that they should be able to perform a function of a public utility, that within the village, they are able to calculate their water requirement. They should be able to save it. They should be able to distribute it, collect it, water service charges, chlorinate it, test it, everything that we are doing. And lastly, for that, in every village, we are trying that 5 persons should be trained, skilled, electrician, plumber, motor fitter, operator, those kind of people. So I think I'll stop here. In a nutshell, at Jal Jeevan Mission, our Ministry of Jal Shakti, we are trying to create a situation where there is no choice. There is no, whether it's a fiscal incentive or the way programs are being designed, that you have no choice except you have to work with them. You have no choice. You have to transfer the power to them, to people, and they are going to be given fund. Well, the journey is a bit difficult. It takes time, but we are pretty confident that things are moving in the right direction. And you'll be happy to know that we have put our dashboard. I'll request all of you to kindly visit our dashboard. We want to improve it further and further and further, that every information, village level, we are developing a village-wise dashboard where you click the village, you will know the assets, you will know the connection who have been given to all, to whom, what was the supply for last 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, what was the water quality of those people, who are the VWSC or GP member, who was the engineer there, what were the complaint, grievance redressal, when it got addressed, all this information at one page. And lastly, I think Kartikeya bhai can appreciate it much more. Gujaratis are very smart in this thing. So we are having worked in Gujarat. I'm also trying that if you get impressed in that village, if it is your village, please contribute something. Money will go to that village. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bharat. It's very, very profoundly reassuring. You've described, an understanding, a detailed understanding of what institutions, incentives, technologies, digital systems can do to empower individual households and communities. And I think if you are able to pull it off, the only thing I didn't hear you mention is what happens if I want to know how many pathogens there are in my water, which is of course a common problem. What is the biological contamination of the water? Because that takes a little time. There are not many instruments available for household use or community use. But otherwise, this is terrific. And if I can leave my sample for overnight at your laboratory and be told that it's drinkable or not, that would be terrific too. So I'm sure you've thought that through, and it's not a major issue. But what you've described is the dream approach to empowering individuals, homes, households, communities, and local governments, basically to be responsive and responsible to their communities. So thank you. It was a very, very reassuring description of, and I hope that you stick with it and make it happen in the next 2 or 3 years. Every single individual home in our country will be able to get decent drinking water. What a change that will make in people's lives. Yes, you wanted to say something, sir.
One. See, as I mentioned, sir, what we are trying to do, every village is being provided a kit.
Yeah.
To this kit, 6-7 parameters like pH, turbidity, TDS, chlorine, alkalinity, bisulfate, all those things are measured. Plus, as on date, they are also given H2S vial, where basically you put your vial and within 24 hours, you will get, if water becomes black in color, you will get A. And B, we are going to have, already we have been able to set up 2,300 laboratories, and our plan is to set up 8,000 laboratories, including degree colleges and colleges where we have got a good chemistry lab. So in those labs also it can be tested. Thirdly, in the lab, not only for biological contamination, but at district level, we are creating culture facility. So which microorganism, which this thing, that will also be done. So that is the core approach we are following. And this, what we are talking, portable device, please kindly appreciate that if it is going to be in 50% plus area, surface water based water supply system, 50% area, it means biological contamination becomes most important, most critical. So 2 parts, A, chlorine, residual chlorine should be tested. And B, in this device, we are trying to have a system where in this device, then and there, you can check the microorganism. Which microorganism? That is second stage. That is the approach.
Thank you. This is terrific. It's going to truly revolutionize the lives of not only the average citizen, but particularly the average village housewife, whose life is pretty complex. And this could remove major impediments in her well-being and in her fulfillment. We've really run out of time. I would like to ask, there are 2 questions, I think, in the Q&A. One is on how to use children to educate the community, their parents and their adults in the community, which is a profoundly important approach. And CEE, of course, is very much tuned into that. And the other one is about, will the project mode be able to deliver the kinds of results we need, which have much more long-term implications? Both are profoundly important questions. I don't think we have time to address them just now. It would be nice if CE could respond to them in writing, but I think we do now have to bring this to a close. So may I ask Madhvi to present a little vote of thanks and then allow participants to vote.
Sorry, sir. Madhvi ma'am is unavailable today and she has a critical health condition. She's better now, but she is not available with us. So I, on behalf of her and Center for Environment Education, would be giving a vote of thanks. So again, I'm taking this opportunity to extend my sincere vote of thanks on behalf of Center for Environment Education, especially for the chair of our session, Shri Khosla ji, and then our honorable speakers, including Shri Kartikeya Sarabhai, Mr. Plän, Ms. Menon, and Mr. Lal for sharing all their inputs and participating in the deliberation, and especially taking out time from their busy schedule for our webinar today. And thank you all our attendees who also were a part of the webinar and they were with us for this interaction. And I look forward to answering the questions as sir mentioned, as we were not able to, as we ran short of time and we didn't have enough time to discuss more about the same. Sir, we can now close the event.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Particularly the speakers, Mr. Bharat, Volker, and I appreciate your interest.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bharat. We must meet sometime soon.
Yes, surely, sir. Look forward, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.